Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's garden video, another busy week in the garden. So one of the things I talked about a couple weeks ago and last week, and I'll talk about it again this week, is the peas have started to die back. There are still some peas on there and I get really excited because I want to keep harvesting them, but I need to actually cut them back and you'll see how bad they are at the end of the video here. But I did decide to cut some of them back and give the tomatoes a little more space. And in doing so, of course, I had to go feed the animals. So it's always fun to throw the extra edible stuff, because not everything in the garden is edible, but the edible stuff into the field and let the animals have at it. I also spent some time harvesting raspberries, and for any of you who grow raspberries, you probably know this, but you can go out there like daily or every other day harvesting, and so I don't get a ton every day. I don't have a big patch there, but I get a cup or two, and I just throw them in the freezer and keep adding them up, and I will continue to collect them, and you'll see I made jam with them later in the week. You know, I've had this problem this year with my cauliflower. I've started a bunch of things numerous times, and they just die. And like the roots are gone. This is something I've never seen before. Many of you maybe have dealt with this, but they just die. And so I went through and just kind of plucked a bunch of the starts out that I had in the ground. But the ones that have survived, which is, I don't know why some survive and some don't, do really well. And so I had a couple that were ready to harvest early in the week. So I went ahead and pulled them out and cleaned off all the leaves and brought them into the house. And here's what they look like all cleaned up. I also continue to harvest beans. So my beans, I plant a bunch of pole beans and I plant a bunch of bush beans. And the bush beans just kind of stay low and grow to the ground. And mostly my bush beans are ready right now, not so much my pole beans. But I have, I don't know, 6 or 7 little plants out there, and they are also very prolific producers. So I can go out there every couple days, and kind of like with peas or zucchini or a lot of the vegetables, you got to get out there daily and pick them or they kind of take over. And you also see that I had some pole beans that were ready to go. Those are scarlet runner beans, but mostly I prefer to have the bush beans, and those are the kind I prefer to eat. I also was walking through the garden and noticed that some of my tomatoes, or at least this one, is starting to turn red and ripen up, which I think is pretty cool because I love tomato season. And also I noticed that one of my Marionberries had started to produce color. And I don't have very many berries, but I'll take any that I can get. Also, continuing looking around, I noticed that my cucumber are producing lots of new fruit, and they're also getting ready to harvest as well. And so at the end of the day, here's kind of what I had on that day. I had some cauliflower done, I had some peas that I didn't feel myself picking, I had some beans, and I had some raspberries. The next day I went out and I harvested some cabbage. The cabbages have been ready to go for a while. I've just been kind of leaving them in the ground. So I went and cleaned off all the exterior leaves, as one would. And then again, you know, I've used those in the past in the garden, but since I had the animals who love to eat them, they got a little treat that day. The next day I went out and, like I said just a second ago in the video, if you don't harvest certain things daily, they just grow on you so fast. And zucchini is one of those plants that just produces and produces and produces, and they grow incredibly fast. A zucchini will be very small on one day and then will be ready to pick the next day. And it was funny, I was out there looking around and I noticed, like, I came across this one. Like, how on earth did I miss this one? Because I'm out there almost every day looking at these. But I did get 4 for that particular day, and I continue to pick them off daily. They are just a great producer in the garden. I continue to do this quite a bit. As I walk through the garden and just take a look at it daily, I see kind of what needs to be done. And my cucumber, the vines, as they continue to grow, they start flopping around, and that's okay. But I do like to wind them up, that trestle that I have for them, and just really get them nice and sturdy so that the cucumbers hang down. I don't know, it's an aesthetic thing. I don't think it really matters. I picked my first cucumber, but I did some time just sort of supporting up the longer vines that had grown a bit. And I've looked at my basil for a while and it's starting to go to seed, and that's fine. You can still harvest it after it goes to seed. In my opinion, it doesn't have any different flavor or whatever. But I thought to buy me a little bit of time because I wasn't ready to harvest, because pretty much I'll harvest this and make it all into pesto. I just thought I'll pick off all the flowers from the top, which smell amazing by the way, and just give myself a few extra days. And I do definitely this week need to actually get out there and harvest that. I was looking at some of the seeds that I planted the last week, and I saw that some of them are starting to sprout. I have this Velcro tape. I don't know where I got it. I think it maybe came with the greenhouse. I'm not sure. It's this green sort of like, I don't know, a floral thing that's got Velcro, and it's actually really nice, I think, to like support things, the few things that need support in the garden. So I noticed that my Marionberries were getting, which is wonderful, they're getting, the vines are starting to grow. So I spent some time sort of supporting them with that Velcro tape on these wires that I have that are kind of hard to see, but they're out there. And also, like I said, beans, they just continue to produce. I was out there harvesting the last, a day ago, and there they are producing again. And here I am. This is funny. I was kind of holding the phone thinking, like, what am I going to do? So every year my tomatoes get away from me. I plant them. I have this grandiose vision of letting them grow up this support, and I'll get them woven in like I do the cucumbers, and it'll be great, and they'll all hang down. And then they just go to town, and I don't look at them for a long time. And then they become a mess. And then this was my meager attempt at like, do I even bother trying to support them or just let them grow wild? And I think I'm just going to let them grow wild this year. Our chicken surprisingly continues to produce eggs, so I'm excited about that and continue to get those. But here's a look at what I get from the day. And I actually put flowers in there too, because I have flowers in the garden out there. You guys may see them in the background. I don't talk about them much, but I also harvest them. And then you see some beans and peas and raspberries, and I'm out there doing. But at the end of this day, because I have so many beans coming off, and I can't keep up with them right now, I decided to pickle, I don't know, I think I ended up with 8 jars at the end. But I just cut them up, put my spices in there, make a vinegar blend, and then chop them. I personally chop them into little chunks because I find it pretty easier, and I don't need the bean to be whole. Put them in my jars, and any of you who are gardeners out there who pickle, I'm sure have gone through this process a million times. But here's just a quick look at me processing stuff, because I've said this in previous videos. Processing the garden stuff is almost as much work as it's actually more work than growing it, but here was just me processing that day. And I mentioned earlier in the video that my seedlings have started to sprout, and I have had them in the greenhouse kind of, you don't really need them in the greenhouse, it's warm enough outside, I could have just put them outside. But I decided to, since they've started to sprout, I'm just going to move them outside. I have this sort of shaded area next to my greenhouse that gets partial sun during the day, so it's a great spot for new seedlings to grow up. I was looking at my onions because I'm really excited. I've tried to produce seeds this year, and so I'm looking at my onions, and I'm not seeing any seeds forming, although the flowers are beautiful, so I'm hoping I get some seeds out of there. And then I just had to show this because this is crazy to me. These are my corn, and I have no idea why they're so tall. I've never seen anything like this before. This variety is crazy, but I'm 6'6", and that's, so you saw they're like 8 feet tall. But I need to clean up my cauliflower row quite a bit, so I went through and I harvested a bunch of the broccoli. The broccoli honestly has needed to be pulled out forever, but I just kind of continued to pick off of it. And then there were a few cauliflower left, so I decided to harvest them as well. And then I also decided to harvest some cabbage. The cabbage had been ready to go, so I think at this point in time, almost all, if not all, of my cauliflower that I had on my first round has been harvested. Same with my cabbage. And then the broccoli, like I said, is holding on, so I'm pretty much done with those vegetables. But here's kind of what it looks like when you're out in the field with the animals. It is fun to feed them the scraps, but boy, I mean, it is chaos out there. And here's a look at the stuff I picked that day. There are a couple cabbage heads, a couple cauliflower heads, and a ton of broccoli. Another chore that I had been kind of putting off, and I put off quite a few chores when I'm out there. I'm busy, but like I see things that need to be done, but I don't always get to them. And this is my time. I had let it just go to flower, that's fine. But I want to like cut it back and get all these flower heads off and get it ready for next year. So I spent some time cutting back my time and pulling all the old dead flower heads off. And when I was done with that, I actually realized it had gotten so big. I had planted this vine in there, just an annual vine, and I had forgotten about it, and it was like struggling, but hopefully now that it's got some exposure, it'll do well. And then, you've heard me talk about these beets. I'm trying to collect seeds. I wanted my beets to go to seed. I had no idea what was going to happen, how big they were going to get. And I thought, they're not drying up. They're not producing like hard seeds. And I thought, so maybe I can help this process along, and maybe if this works, I can get these things out of the ground. So I decided to do a test. So I cut off a bunch of the beet seeds and I've put them in my greenhouse, and I'm gonna let them sit there for a week and see if they dry out. And if they dry out and produce good seeds, I'm gonna like cut all those back and take them all out, and I'll just kind of force the seeds. Another thing I didn't really film much of, but I'm more processing, is I have so many raspberries, I decided to make a bunch of raspberry jam. So I spent some time processing raspberry jam. And here we are at today. My strawberry patch, it's gonna look like that for the rest of the year. I've got a couple kale and I guess one more cabbage coming in. Here's some chard and some lettuces. I hope I'll get some lettuce off of them before they bolt like those other ones. Here's my cauliflower row. It continues to look pretty bad. And I've started some new seedlings and I'll try to get some in the ground, but I'm hoping I can figure out what's happening with all those ones that keep dying. There's a look at my tomatoes that are kind of growing wild, and I mentioned this earlier in the video. I've got to cut down my peas. They're ready to come out. I haven't done it yet. My potatoes, they've started to die back, which means they're ready to harvest, which gets me excited, so I'll just harvest them. Here is my corn, which you saw earlier, how big it is. I'm excited to see what kind of corn I get off of it. Here's the cucumbers that I've been feeding up that trellis, and my beans kind of in the background. Those are my pole beans. I don't have many of them coming off yet, but they're there. That's my zucchini, which is very prolific, though. That is my beet monstrosity. Here's a couple more bush beans and a look at my fava beans I left in the ground to produce seed stock. That is my onions that you saw. They're flopping over, so they're harvestable as well. And here is my basil, which I need to get out this week and harvest. Also, I have some tomatillos in the ground back there, and those are growing up nicely. I don't even know if they're setting fruit yet. I haven't really looked. Over by my asparagus, I planted a couple butternut squash just to try to see if I can get some butternut squash growing, and those are kind of coming up. They're late, but let's see if they grow. And lastly, here's a look at my berries, which are growing in nicely as well. And I thought I'd just leave you this week with a shot of some clouds up by this beautiful upper tarn in Royal Basin.